Hi everyone. So I'm Uri, and I'm going to talk to you about how to use the Apollo library in GraphQL in your Angular applications. And the former talk was kind of the perfect intro to my talk, because it was about how important the network is and like how important the user experience when using the network. But then, like a lot of other talks, it was a lot about what you should do, and the speaker like really urged you to do all those things to make your apps faster and better with the network. And I believe that if you give developers easy tools that they don't need to learn a lot, that they can very easily and fastly be productive, but do all those things, like the Angular team is doing with all the tools that they introduced us, then you can really affect the web very fast. And that's what we do in Apollo. So if you know a little bit about me, you know that I'm pretty obsessed about data and Angular. Like basically all of my talks since very early on when I started using Angular, since version 0.9, I think, were about data. And the reason for that is that very fast, I started using Angular because I could give my users very good user experience. Like it was slick to use Angular. And also, I just kept thinking about the opportunity to use Angular also on mobile. And I started doing that also with Cordova, and then later on Ionic came in version 0.1. And already then, I started noticing that usually, I mean, there were using Angular 1 and all technologies were affecting to the user experience, but the network started being a hassle from also back there. And what we saw today with Angular, like what we see today with Angular 2 is that all of those other hassles, the Angular team really cleared our way. So right now, if you use Angular 2, you get amazing rendering performance. You can bundle the size of your app to super small. But still, you know, the users are the one who cares. Like the users don't care about observables and ahead of time compiler. Like they are the ones who judge if it's a good mobile app or not, and if we could replace mobile native applications or not. So like I said, the Angular team has done basically everything for us, like in terms of rendering performance, initial loading. Now we just need to use these transitions and animations. Like we get amazing tools. But there's just like one thing that we can't keep getting solved, and this is the network. And no matter how many memes of slow networks I will put here, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But like I said in the keynote, you know, we're Angular developers, we're front-end developers, we shouldn't really care, right? Like it's a network problem and the server people's problem. Well, let's look at the experience, for example. Let's take an example, and this example is I will actually live code it like later in the talk if I have time. Then we just post a comment, and it takes time because the network is slow. And you know, if we're nice, then we can add a spinner, you know, and then it's like a good experience. But if you're thinking about how good applications are doing that, and our users are used today to use good applications like Facebook and Google and Gmail. If we archive a message in Gmail, it's happening instantly. So you can see on the right that when I'm submitting a message, it's happening instantly, and I don't care about the spinner. And someone on Twitter asked me if I would do the parrot meme again. So yeah, okay, I'll do that. And the parrot is back big time. And it doesn't matter, how great our spinners are. Still, the experience on the right, definitely now, but the experience on the right is much better, and this is what our users are used to. So if we're writing web apps and we don't give them that experience, they would know that this is not a good app or website. So another example that I showed yesterday, and it's the same app that I'll show today later on, is that this is, we're just moving between pages of our app, and this is Angular 2 app, it's super fast, it renders quickly, but when we move between pages, we have a loading screen, and that's fine. But if you look again on the right, then everything is happening instantly. And there's, what we're doing here is actually, first of all, we prefetching comments. Like the speaker before me said, we can prefetch some of the things. So even before we go to a page, we can prefetch those things. And then when we go back, we still have it. So we're putting it in the cache. And yeah, you can do it by yourself, but you know, we're busy. We're busy writing, learning about new templates and learning about observables and doing all the new stuff that we need to do and doing stuff that our boss tells us. So that's why we think that in Apollo that like with the Angular platform, that you get so many tools, you should get the same for data, because that will give you the opportunity to make your applications faster and snappier and feel native or even replace native, but without like spending so much time on doing all kinds of things that basically everyone is doing. Facebook is doing it, Gmail is doing it, every normal good consumer application is doing it, so why not do it once? So this is Apollo. It's a network data management library. It makes your apps feel instant, and with all kinds of things. Like I just showed a few examples, like optimistic UI and prefetching, but we also support server-side rendering, and if you want to get the data and many other things, but you get a tool to do that. You don't need to do it all yourself. It's small. It's a small bundle size because we care about the network. It's open source, it's free, and it's client only. So we can work with any backend. And you can integrate it gradually. Like, let's say right now you have an app and you're using REST endpoints, you can use the Apollo library next to your REST APIs and just gradually move them. Usually, you take the slowest one or the most crucial one and you start with that. Another thing is that we do all those things for you, but it's completely pluggable because those interactions, we want to give you the power to decide what to do with it. So if you submit a comment and it fails on the server, we want to give you the whole options of what to do. Like, it's already in the UI what to do. So you can, I don't know, copy the Slack behavior where the message becomes like grayed out and you have a button of resending it again, or whatever thing you want to do. So we based our library on Redux and we expose everything with RxJS observables, so you have complete freedom to change all of those behaviors yourself. And when we write the data library, we want also to write on a good and new standard protocol, which is GraphQL, and I'll talk now a little bit about that. So GraphQL, before we go into that, maybe let's talk about REST, right? Let's talk what we're doing right now. So now, let's say we finished writing our Angular app. We're usually, we're writing it pretty fast. The server developers probably are slower than ourselves. And they haven't run the API documentation, or it's probably outdated because they added a field that they haven't told anyone. And I never seen, I think, an internal REST API which is actually documented and updated. And then another thing we usually do is if you want to get multiple resources, like I want to get my profile and all my friends, then I'm sending like multiple REST APIs, multiple REST calls, which are expensive. And then when I get all this data, I need to join all this data together, which also takes time. Or let's say we're really good friends with the server developers, and then we tell them, no, we want one REST call that will give us all that information. Then usually we get overfetching data. We get too much data over the network, so it becomes slow. And again, we usually develop faster than the server developers. So what ends up usually is that we write our Angular app super fast, but we keep waiting for the server developers to come up with those new APIs that they need to do. And we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and when they come up with those APIs, it's probably not what we expected. And then there's a bug, and I'm sure most of you know what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking I won't start talking about real time because REST doesn't have any support for that. And again, there's this thing where we request, this basic thing where we send a request to the server, or to a REST API, we have no idea what we get back. And let's say we know we got now a person with the name of the age, tomorrow we might get another field, and we won't know about it. So, but we're used to that. But maybe it's time now to rethink data fetching. Maybe we need a new way of doing that. Like we want to, for example, if we would think about or hypothesize about something like that, maybe we want as client developers to declare what data we want. And maybe we want it in one single endpoint that will get all the data that we want. We don't need to work with multiple endpoints because I just want one place to bring me my data. And also, I want, we moved into component-based development. Like everyone keeps telling us, move into component, use components, Angular 1 or Angular 2. But we write our data, like our REST endpoints, in one central service. I want to write my data dependencies inside the component. Well, the good thing is that luckily we're not alone. And there's this company that also had this problem. And again, in the last talk, they talked about that point where Facebook decided to move in 2011 from HTML to mobile applications. But the biggest change that they've done is not only the native applications, they changed completely their internal API. And they needed to write a modern API because they understood that the problems are in the network, but they had existing backends. They didn't want to write the whole Facebook backends again. So that's when they invented a GraphQL, which is an API query language. And they've been using it since 2011. Until today, they haven't released new version of their API since then. So there's still, which I'll talk maybe later about API versioning, or maybe in a different talk, but there's still Facebook clients working since 2011 with the same GraphQL schemas. So what is GraphQL? GraphQL is a way for the client to ask exactly what it wants and get exactly that. No more, no less, and it gives you the power as client developer to decide and have the power of and know what you are gonna get back. Another thing is that, again, like we're calling into multiple resources, we'll get everything in one single response. And this response will be exactly like we expect it to be. We don't need to do joins on the Angular part anymore. And one super, super important thing is that it's a typed API. And typed API is interesting. Why is it interesting? First of all, we know what we get back, which is super important, and we haven't got that until now. But then it means that we can actually statically analyze this API, and we can statically analyze the queries. And that's nice, and saying statically analyze makes you sound smart in lectures, but what it breaks down to is this. So you can work and write your API like that inside your IDE during development before even the server implemented the logic, and you will get auto-completion, you will get errors if you've done it wrong, you will get documentation, and all of that, the server developer didn't need to do. You don't need to rely on anyone, you just need to rely on yourself and the schema. So this is very, very powerful. Now, one important thing that people ask is that, okay, but I don't care about databases and things like that, and it's important to understand that GraphQL is not a storage engine. It's just an API, like REST. You can put it on top of your existing backends. You can query a REST endpoint if you want. You can query a database at the backend. You don't care. You can query different servers, different resources. But for the client developers, you will get exactly what you saw before. One request, one response. And like I said, it leverages your existing code and sits on top of your existing code and not underneath or inside. And it's not like we invented it, and it's not like we're the only one excited about it. The whole industry is moving into it. You can see here a lot of big companies that some of them we're working with for a long time. You can see also services, like, I don't know, like backend as a service that bring you, if you don't want to write your server, you can just use those services. And one big thing that happened a week or 2 weeks ago is that GitHub, I don't know if you heard about it, but in GitHub Universal, they announced that their public API now is GraphQL. And they've been using it internally for a while now. So it's not a new thing. So how to start? I have like 4 minutes, and I'll try to live code this thing. So we'll see what we get. So this is a hacker news for GitHub repositories, basically. So this thing, first of all, I call my own server, which runs locally, but also I call a third-party API, which is GitHub, and it's all in one schema, and for me as the client developer, it's one API. So let's try. So the first thing that I need to do is just install, I have an app, sorry. Oh, you don't see anything, you see mountains. Okay, so I have an Angular app that I hope you can see. And right now what I need to do is just to add Angular 2 Apollo into it. It's an Angular 2 app. By the way, you can use it with Angular 1 if you want. So I just need to do npm install Angular 2 Apollo, maybe save it if I want. But of course, I won't run it because I'm not crazy, and I'm not going to do npm install during a lecture, because it's just going to take the whole 4 minutes. So I have it running here. Again, it's just a basic Angular 2 app running with the Angular CLI. And the only thing I need to do to add Angular 2 Apollo into my app is I need to import it. I also done it before. Just import the Apollo module and add it to my modules and define a client. And a client is just a config file that you can copy, but you can also just write it yourself. That gives you a lot of power, but basically here you specify your endpoint, which again, it's one endpoint. And you can then add all kinds of options, like you can, like same origin. I don't know if you used to work from local storage and you got those problems, you can just add it here, or authentication, or whatever you need. So this is fine. I have an app. Now I need to work from my server, but I have no idea what I'm going to get back, right? Well, let's look at this thing. This thing is something I get for free. This is GraphQL. This is an open source editor that with every GraphQL server or schema, you get that out of the box. So I just, and here I can see, first of all, on the right, you can see the documentation. I have all the queries that I can query my server. And also, I have all the mutations, like what's the important thing to say that people sometimes ask. GraphQL is not just a query language. You can also do the equivalent of post request or RPC. You can change the data. So, and you can also have real time with subscriptions, which probably I won't get to today. So I know that I can get a feed of the things, and inside the feed I have an entry, and the entry have those fields. So here I have an example, but let's query another thing. Let's query the score as well. So the score is not in the repository, so I get an error, by the way, you can see. But if I put score here, and then I query the thing, then if the internet is actually working, then I'll get I get the score as well. And again, I get doesn't matter how nested my query is, I will get everything in one single request. Now that's cool, but now let's add it into our component. I have a feed here, I have a feed component, and it's just a regular Angular component. There's nothing data fetchy or nothing Apollo in there. So I just need to import Angular 2 Apollo. And from Angular to Apollo. And now I want to create a query. So how do I do that? So I just define, let's just define this query, call it a feed query, for example. And at the beginning, let's just do it, just like a simple string, okay? And let's just put query. We want to query feed. And we need to send it the type, which is, everything is typed here. So if you look at, if you think about feed type, if you think about TypeScript, then when we do TypeScript, we think it's good because we want to make sure like things are actually working, but those are inside our code. But with the API, we're actually calling a code that we have no control over it on the server, and we don't do types. So it's very valuable to do types here. So let's continue. I'll stop rambling and maybe get this thing working. Those are all kinds of like variables that I can send into my query. Yeah, and now we want to query the feed itself. So again, we have the type, offset, and offset. And this is because, by the way, the offset and type, this is because we have, in GraphQL, you have built in the protocol a standard for how to do pagination. So you don't need to reinvent this thing every time you do it again and again, which is very, very valuable. Now, I want to put the query in, so I can start typing it here. But what I can do is I can just go here and copy paste this thing from here and put it here. Maybe arrange it a bit. And that's it. That's everything I need to do. Now, in order to get this thing inside my code, I just need to add the service to inject it. So let's just let's call it Apollo, and this is the Angular 2 Apollo thing that we imported before. And now, in order to do that, I just need to do this.apollo and watch query. And watch query gets a query, which is the query that we wrote before, which is this thing, feed query. And then I want to send it variables as well. So the variables will be what we had. We had type. And I'm taking those variables from here, from the component. I have just those things here. So we need offset. And limit. Yes, and this will actually bring us back an observable. So let's just define this observable. This will give us a subscription. So let's define the subscription, feed subscription, and this is an Apollo. Let's import from here, Apollo queries observable. This is just a subscription, actually. This is just like a regular RxJS subscription. So now this thing will actually bring us this. Okay, but I might want to query more things. So because what I can do is I can actually go to the feed entry. This is what this is what I know. I can go through. This is a regular Angular comment. I just can take all those fields, put them here, and query this. So I've already done that. Oh, I missed. Wait. So I'll just show you one query. Okay. Sorry for the thing. I'll just show you one thing. So I'll do it super quickly. Okay, I know what I'll do. Sorry for the time. I'll just revert this thing. And let's go back to the feed and look at this amazing code that I wrote. So, well, in 4 minutes it's hard, right? But I have this query here, and all the fields that I needed. And then I have the observable here. And then I get a subscription. And every time the subscription is filled, every time I get new data, it can be from real time or for polling or just once, doesn't matter. I'm just putting it in the feed. So if I run the app now, hopefully I will get everything here. And also I wanted to show you also the fact that I can vote things here and it will happen instantly without the network latency. But I'll stop now because I don't have time anymore. So I'll go just finish this thing. So I'll jump a few slides, but I'll just tell you that I just showed you that this is very easy to add if you're not on stage. And in order to start, you just need to Google Angular Apollo or Angular GraphQL. And go to our website. We have a new blog post and documentation. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Uri. So we're going to have a quick break.